Before the sun has fully taken hold on January 19, 1991, two F-15C Eagles are already high over Iraq, flying escort for Operation Desert Storm while the desert below waits under a thin morning haze. Captain Cesar Rico Rodriguez and his wingman, Captain Craig Mole Underhill, are out in front, clearing the way for a large strike package of 36 aircraft moving toward targets near Baghdad, where the real work is about to begin. Behind them, waves of F-16s roll in, each jet heavy with 2,000-pound general-purpose bombs beneath its wings. One after another, they dive, release, and climb away as the bombs fall straight toward Iraqi ammunition depots below. A moment later, the desert erupts. Fireballs climb upward, shockwaves ripple across the sand, and smoke begins to spread. Everyone is expecting surface-to-air missiles to answer, so the F-16s haul back hard, throwing chaff and flares behind them. But the Iraqi Air Force has chosen a different move. Instead of missiles, it sends up its best available fighters. Two pairs of MiG-29 Fulcrums are in the air, waiting for a chance to strike where the Americans look exposed. The Iraqi pilots know they are outnumbered, so they keep their distance, watching, measuring, and waiting for the right opening. Then the call comes in. Two F-15s are out ahead of the formation. Fast, valuable, and for a moment, almost alone. For the Fulcrums, this is the chance they have been holding back for. They turn in and begin racing toward the intercept. Inside his F-15, Rico hears the calm voice of AWACS controller Mark White cutting through the radio noise. Rico, you have two hostile contacts. One bearing 040 for 35. Second is 340 for 65. Rico answers, acknowledges the threat, and immediately chooses the contact that looks most dangerous to the strike force. He and Mole turn toward the fight. Almost at once, the F-15 radar reaches out and finds the first enemy return. A contact appears on the scope, but that is not the only warning in the cockpit. Another display flashes with a 29. That is the radar warning receiver, the RWR, telling Rico that hostile radar energy is touching his aircraft. He is being painted by a MiG-29, and both he and Mole understand exactly what that means. The fight is no longer distant. Two pairs of fourth-generation fighters now have each other in sight, closing at supersonic speed like knights in a modern joust. Rico selects an AIM-7 Sparrow, ready to take the first shot if the geometry gives him even a narrow window. But the Iraqi pilots are not simply charging in. They dive low, trying to use the ground clutter beneath them as a shield. If the radar has to sort aircraft from the messy return of the Earth, maybe the Fulcrums can blur themselves into the background. For a second, that may seem like a smart gamble. But in Rico's cockpit, the fuzzy return begins to sharpen instead of vanish. The single smear breaks apart into two clear targets. The trick has failed, and now the fight has become 2 against 2. Rico picks one return and locks it. Across the sky, inside the Fulcrum, the Iraqi pilot hears his own warning receiver howl. He knows the F-15 has him, but the Iraqis have another tactic ready, and they execute it with practiced timing. They bank sharply, sliding across the F-15's radar line. And suddenly, the lock warning stops. On Rico's scope, they disappear. His finger is close to the weapon's release button, but the target is gone before the Sparrow can leave the rail. It is not magic. It is a blind spot in the F-15 radar, where targets moving sideways across the nose can briefly vanish. The MiG-29s are using that weakness perfectly, cutting across his radar instead of running straight away. Rico is frustrated, but he understands the move. This is not confusion. It is a deliberate attempt to control the fight. Then the enemy returns, 12 nautical miles out. Rico locks again, but he still holds fire because the AIM-7 needs guidance. The Sparrow must be supported all the way to the target, and Rico can already see what the fulcrums are about to do. Before the missile could ever reach them, they would slide back into the blind spot and break the lock again. So he waits. The contact fades. Then it appears. Then fades again. The MiGs keep dancing in and out of his radar picture. They hold roughly 12 nautical miles of separation, close enough to threaten, far enough to keep the Americans reaching. Rico can feel the pattern now. The fulcrums are not fleeing. They are dragging him and Mole across the sky on purpose. Back aboard the AWACS, Mark White watches the chase unfold. As the F-15s press forward, they edge out of his assigned airspace. Following procedure, he hands Rico and Mole over to another controller, but he does not truly stop watching them. In the cockpits, the chase continues until the RUR begins to chirp again, then fill with warnings from directly ahead. Rico realizes what lies in front of them. A belt of S-125 NEVA surface-to-air missile sites protecting Baghdad. The fulcrums are trying to pull the Eagles into a killing field, where missiles on the ground can do what the jets cannot. Mole sees it too. If they keep going, they are flying straight toward the city's anti-air defenses. If they turn away, there is another risk. Rico checks on the strike package and listens as the F-16s continue their bombing runs below and behind him. If he and Mole leave now, the MiGs will be free to break past them and attack the F-16s while they are loaded and vulnerable. So Rico makes the choice that defines the moment. They will hold position, keep pushing the bandits away, and buy time. Only after the strikes are complete can they turn for home. Until then, they stay between the MiGs and the aircraft they are protecting. The rower clicks each time enemy radars sweep across them. And those clicks come faster, sharper, more urgent with every mile. But the Iraqi plan is more layered than it first appears. The missiles ahead are not the real trap. They are the distraction. While Rico and Mole focus forward, a third MiG-29 rushes in from the left, outside the F-15's nose radar. Its own radar is switched off, so it does not light up Rico's rower. It is coming in silent, fast, and dangerously close. Even though the fight is no longer officially his to manage, Mark White glances back at the situation from his AWACS console. He sees the new contact sliding toward the F-15s and instantly understands the danger. The Eagles are not reacting. The Bandit closes to 18 nautical miles, then 16, already inside the reach of an R-27 missile. White hesitates, worried that a radio call in the middle of a fight might distract them at the worst possible second. But the range keeps shrinking. 15 nautical miles. 14. The silence from the F-15s tells him they still do not see it. White finally breaks in with the warning. Pop up. Contact 330 for 13 miles. The timing is almost impossibly tight. Rico hears it and reacts instantly. He punches off his fuel tanks and pulls hard toward the new threat as vapor sheets over his wings. The moment his nose swings toward the incoming fulcrum, the contact appears on radar. It is only 8 nautical miles away. Now both fighters are inside each other's lethal space. The Iraqi pilot, still flying with radar silent, is told the Americans are ahead. He turns his radar on and Rico appears on his screen. At the same instant, Rico's RER shows the ominous 29 again. The two aircraft are finally aware of each other, closing head-on at supersonic speed with almost no room left for hesitation. Rico locks the target, but he does not fire. The rules of engagement require visual identification inside 10 miles. The concern is that a friendly F-117 Nighthawk could be in the area, and a mistaken shot would be unforgivable. Even with the RER screaming and the danger growing by the second, Rico holds his fire and tells Mole to run the identification. But time is collapsing. The Iraqi pilot selects Rico's jet and locks him. The warning tone in Rico's cockpit becomes a full scream. Rico rolls inverted, dives hard, and releases chaff, hoping the ground and the metallic cloud will confuse the incoming radar picture. It does not work. The lock warning stays with him as he drops from 30,000 feet at the speed of sound. Rico whips his head left and right, searching the sky, trying to find the aircraft that may already have a missile lined up. Above him, Mole locks the contact and begins the identification process with help from the intelligence aircraft in the area. Seconds stretch until they feel almost unreal. Then the clearance finally comes. The target is hostile. Mole presses the button. Fox 1. The aim. 7 Sparrow leaps from beneath the F-15, trailing smoke as it tears across the sky toward the fulcrum. Rico sees the smoke line pass between his tails and follows it with his eyes until he finally spots the MiG-29. The fulcrum is nose down toward him, still dangerous, still pointed at his aircraft, but it never gets the shot it wants. The Sparrow slams into the MiG-29 almost square on the nose. A bright flash tears open the sky and the jet breaks apart. Black oil, metal, and debris scatter where a fighter had been moments earlier. Over the radio comes the call everyone was waiting for. Splash 1. Rico pulls out of the dive at only 500 feet. Relief hitting him as hard as the G-forces had moments before. But inside the AWACS, Mark White is already seeing the shape of the next problem. The first MiG is gone, but the fight is not finished. A second group is still to the north, only 10 nautical miles away, and that distance leaves almost no comfort at all. Rico scans the sky and thinks for a moment about turning away. The F-16s have completed their work and are heading home. The mission they were protecting is no longer in the same danger, so in theory, there is no reason to keep pushing deeper. But the enemy is close enough to become lethal if they simply turn their backs. Walking away now could invite a shot from behind. Rico knows the only safe exit may be to fight through the threat first. He turns north and searches for the contact again. The target appears just beyond 10 miles, far enough to meet the rules, close enough to demand an immediate decision. He runs the identification process. The result comes back hostile. Rico selects the radar contact and locks it in. Inside the Iraqi cockpit, the pilot hears the lock warning and reacts at once, braking hard into an evasive turn. But this time, Rico's radar hold does not slip away. The contact stays there, firm on the scope, as his finger waits over the button. Then Mole sees something that turns the moment cold. The symbol on his display changes, no longer looking like a simple hostile return. It lights up as a diamond on his scope, the shape that tells him the aircraft may be friendly. For Mole, dread hits instantly. Rico hears the concern, but he is not convinced. Everything about the situation tells him this has to be another MiG. Still, confidence is not enough when missiles are involved. He needs proof, and in that sky, proof means seeing the aircraft with his eyes. Rico decides to identify the target visually, while Mole prepares himself to take the shot if the answer becomes clear. The enemy is coming toward him and slightly above, closing fast. Rico stays low, letting the distance collapse rather than climbing too early. He holds his line, waits for the aircraft to grow larger against the bright sky, and then pulls the nose up. The engines are burning at full power. The bogey's belly fills his forward view, but the glare makes the shape hard to read. Rico keeps the F-15 in the merge, holding his path until the two jets pass within an impossibly tight distance. At barely 50 feet, he finally gets the view he needs. From above, the aircraft shows green camouflage and the Iraqi flag. There is no doubt left. It is a MiG-29, and the strange friendly indication on the system has been dangerously wrong. Rico climbs past the fulcrum and begins a wide left turn, looking down through the canopy as the MiG starts a flat turn of its own. The Iraqi pilot holds altitude and turns left, trying to stay in the fight. In that instant, the neat formation plan disappears. There is no longer a tidy setup, no clean shooter position, no textbook geometry. This has become a close-range dogfight. Rico rolls inverted and pulls hard on the stick, cutting into the MiG's circle and forcing the F-15 toward its limits. The pressure builds violently. 10 Gs slam into his body, trying to drain strength, vision, and breath all at once. The MiG flashes across his nose, and Rico pulls left after it, refusing to let the fulcrum escape the fight it has started. He sees the MiG extending away, but he also feels the advantage moving to him. The geometry is beginning to favor the Eagle. The Iraqi pilot pushes down, trading altitude for speed, trying to gain room, trying to force a mistake before the desert rises too close. Rico follows, spiraling downward with him. Both fighters carving tightening arcs through the air as the ground grows larger beneath them. The two paths begin to converge. The MiG screams through the merge again, closer this time, and Rico knows the window is opening. He pulls harder, feeling the blood sink away from his head as he fights to bring the fulcrum into his sight line. Far above, Mole watches his lead locked in the turning fight and sees a chance to enter if needed. But Rico can feel this one becoming his. The MiG comes back around. The two jets roar past each other again, each pilot trying to bend physics just a little further. Rico is almost there, almost in position, but both aircraft are running out of sky beneath them. Altitude is disappearing fast. He hauls back with everything he has, driving through the crushing weight of 10 Gs to keep the MiG from slipping away. Through the strain, a clean and beautiful picture begins to form. The fulcrum moves closer to the center of his sights. Rico selects the AIM-9 Sidewinder and starts pulling the nose ahead of the MiG, setting up the angle the missile would need. But the Iraqi pilot sees the danger. In a desperate final move, he rolls inverted and pulls hard toward the ground. Rico is ready for a break, a reversal, maybe one last trick. But what he sees instead is the fulcrum diving straight toward the sand. He does not follow. Instinct and discipline take over together, and he pulls up and left, letting the MiG fall out of the fight. Inside the fulcrum, the Iraqi pilot begins trying to recover, pulling against brutal G-forces as the desert fills his windscreen. He drives the afterburners to maximum, the aircraft screaming as it exceeds what its frame was meant to endure. The nose must come up now, and the pilot is giving it everything he has. But the ground is too close, and the turn has gone too far. The MiG-29 keeps falling, its pilot trapped inside a maneuver that no longer has enough room to become an escape. Then the fulcrum and the man flying it slam into the desert, disappearing into the sand in a violent burst of wreckage and dust. Rico levels out with his heart still racing, the adrenaline slowly draining as the truth of the moment catches up with him. He has survived the trap, survived the ambush, and survived the knife fight at low altitude. He has won. Mole appears 2 miles off his right side, steady and reassuring after the chaos. The call comes through. Tactical, right side. For the first time in what feels like an eternity, Rico can allow himself to breathe a little easier. The sky is finally opening. Rico looks across at Mole, checks his instruments, and lets the simplest words of the day carry the weight of everything behind them. Let's go home. After all the warnings, the traps, the blind radar games, and the fight down near the desert floor, home is enough. The two F-15s turn away from Baghdad's defenses and begin the flight back, leaving the smoke, wreckage, and alarms behind them. What had started as an escort mission had become a test of nerve, Judgment, teamwork, and split-second trust under extreme pressure. Rico and Mole had not simply chased enemy fighters. They had held the line long enough for the strike force to finish its work. They had stayed between the F-16s and the MiGs, even while the Iraqi plan tried to pull them into surface-to-air missile coverage. They had survived a silent ambush from the side, a near head-on missile threat, and a confusing identification problem at close range. And in the middle of that chaos, one AWACS controller's decision to speak up had helped keep the entire situation from turning fatal. Mark White had already handed them off by procedure, but he kept watching because experience told him the fight was still alive. That one warning gave Rico the moment he needed to react, turn, and bring the hidden MiG-29 into the open. In air combat, technology matters, but timing matters just as much. Sometimes a few seconds decide whether a pilot fights or never sees it coming. The engagement also showed how dangerous modern air combat had become, especially when both sides were flying fourth-generation fighters. The F-15C Eagle had powerful radar, speed, and weapons, but it still had limits that a skilled opponent could exploit. The MiG-29 Fulcrum was fast, agile, and dangerous, especially when used with patience, deception, and an ambush plan. This was not a simple case of one aircraft dominating another from a distance. It was a shifting contest of tactics and decisions. The Iraqi pilots tried to hide in ground clutter, vanish through radar blind spots, and lure the Americans toward Baghdad's missile belt. Then they sent another Fulcrum in silently from the side, radar off, hoping to catch the F-15s while their attention was forward. It was a layered trap, and for a moment, it nearly worked. The distance closed too fast, and Rico was forced into a defensive dive. Mole's missile shot broke that first danger, but even then, the sky did not become safe. Another MiG was close enough to force a fight. That second encounter became even more personal because the systems gave conflicting signals at exactly the wrong time. Mole's display suggested the contact might be friendly, but Rico's eyes, instincts, and the situation told him otherwise. He chose not to guess with a missile. He pushed close enough to see the aircraft himself, even though that meant entering a brutal merge. When he saw the green camouflage and the Iraqi flag, the uncertainty vanished, and the fight changed into a turning battle at low altitude. From there, it was no longer about radar symbols or controller calls. It was pilot against pilot, body against G-force, machine against machine. Rico forced his F-15 through the turn, chasing position while the MiG tried to escape by diving for speed and space. But the desert floor was climbing toward them, and the Fulcrum's final maneuver left no room for recovery. Rico did not need to fire the Sidewinder. By refusing to follow the doomed dive, he survived while the MiG destroyed itself. It was a victory won not only by aggression, but by restraint, awareness, and knowing when not to chase. Captain Cesar Rico Rodriguez would later be credited with 3 aerial victories across his career. That total placed him among the leading American fighter pilots in MiG kills after Vietnam, a rare distinction in the jet age. Yet the story is not only about numbers on a record. It is about how quickly a controlled mission can turn into a fight for survival. It is about how pilots depend on wingmen, controllers, procedures, training, and sometimes a single voice cutting through the radio. It is also a reminder that even the best aircraft in the world are only as good as the people making decisions inside them. On January 19, 1991, over Iraq, the F-15 did what its reputation promised. But it did not do it alone. Rico, Mole, and Mark White each played a part in turning a dangerous ambush into a hard-earned escape. And somewhere beneath all the speed, missiles, radar screens, and military language, there is a simple human truth. In moments where fear moves faster than thought, survival often comes down to discipline, trust, and the courage to act at the right second. For Rico and Mole, that morning ended with the sky behind them, the desert below them, and a course finally set away from the fight. The strike package was safe, the MiGs were gone, and the mission that had nearly become a disaster was now something else entirely. It was a story that would be remembered not because it was easy, but because it came so close to going the other way.